good.
Well, we just finished praying, but please stand with us. Blessed art thou, O Christ our God, who didst show forth the fishermen as supremely wise, by sending down on them the Holy Spirit, and through them didst draw the world into thy net. O friend of man, glory be to thee.
Father, maybe if you could just check the
I
microphone.
deliberately didn't turn it up. Well, you may have noticed that I paused there just for a minute, well, not a minute, a split second, because I was a little uncertain how to translate the Greek word philanthrope. Now, we all heard, of course, everybody knows all English words eventually come from Greek. Well, the fact is that a great majority of them do, but philanthropy is one that comes directly from Greek. And what does philanthropy mean? It means doing good things for people, okay? But it comes from two Greek words, philo, which means I love, and anthropos, of course, we know means man. By the way, that word, philo, when Christ appeared to the disciples at the Sea of Galilee after the resurrection, and they had that miraculous draught of fish, 153 fish that St. Peter drew to land. And then he asked Peter, Peter, do you love me? And he says, yes, Lord, you know I love you. And he asked him again, Peter, do you love me? Yes, I love you. And then they asked him a third time. And Peter was, of course, upset that he asked him a third time. And he answered, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. And he said, be my life. Okay. What we don't get in the English is there are three different words for love, I love, in Greek. There's philo, which is the kind of love that we all have for each other, friendly love, you know, my buddies, okay? There's ero, which is passionate love. Now, by the way, when I say passionate love, it doesn't mean necessarily lust and intersex love and all. There is such a thing as divine eros. When a person is I have you, Lord, I have to have you, Lord. That's divine eros, and it's a positive thing. Okay. And third, there is agapo, and the noun is agape. Actually, there are a couple others which I won't go into because it's too obscure. But anyway, but when Christ asked St. Peter, Peter, do you love me? He says, Philis me. Do you like me like a friend? No, forgive me. I'm saying. He asked Peter, Magapo, do you love me as divine love? And Peter answers him, Nekere philose, I really like you, I love you like a man. Christ said, feed my sheep. Then he asked him again, and he answered the same way. And Christ says, feed my lambs. Then Christ asked him the third time, Petre, Philis me, do you like me? Just like he'd been answering him. And that's why Peter got upset, got depressed. He realized Christ wasn't taking a second-rate answer. That's all Peter's going to give. And he just asked him, okay, then. Now, that's one thing we've got to understand is our relationship with God is unique. It is hyperusio, as we were just talking about in the Lord's Prayer, when we say, give us this day our daily bread. Not a very good translation, but it does have, I've read somewhere, some validity, but the word actually is super essential. In other words, it's beyond a normal bread, beyond a normal need. It is, well, divine, okay? So God wants our super essential love. If we love him like we love everybody else, then he's just everybody else. It's the mystic association, the mystic penetration of God in the world is beyond our comprehension, but that's where we are to live. As I was saying yesterday, St. Paul's little mention of a cloud of witnesses. Like I say, for years it was confusing to me because the cloud obscures things. No, what a cloud really does is it, in infinite ways, reflects the light of the sun. And this is how the saints are reflecting the light, the emanating from the Son of righteousness, Jesus Christ our Lord. So that's where we live. That's where we should strive to put our consciousness, our focus. Now, one thing I just touched on briefly yesterday was focus. And someone was asking about when you say the Jesus Prayer, how do you keep in mind the significance and meaning of the words? And my answer was, don't worry about it. I didn't say don't do it. I said, don't worry about it. Say the words, meaning will come. Believe me, if you just say, eventually you'll realize, he is here. I'll tell you a little story. As I've mentioned before, I was a canonarch at St. Anthony's Monastery for 24 years. I'll tell you how I got the job, by the way. I was totally unqualified. Absolutely no way was I qualified. The monk that did it, there were only maybe 12 monks there at the time. And the monk that was serving as a canonarch also had the job of taking people back and forth to the airport and running errands in town. And many times he just wasn't there, and so they just kind of went without it. And so finally I went up to the abbot and said, you know, if you want, I can do that. Okay, do it. Oh. Well, I think I can do it. Well, I did. Well, I did a couple of things I did. It changes sometimes. I watched how they did it. And the first or second time that I had to do it myself, no, it was different. It was a different type of service. Oh. And so I looked over and a friend kind of smiles. Yeah, I amused him on occasions like that. But anyway, part of my job was when the priest or the deacon says the litanies, I was supposed to answer, Kyrie eleison. Now, I didn't know how it was supposed to sound. I was supposed to be melodic or be simple. I don't know. I mean, I know what somebody did. I heard some recordings of in a Greek church, And this Greek prosopis, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison. And so I did that a couple times. Aaron Ephraim sent Papa Ephraim, over to me and said, no, forgive me. Aaron Ephraim came over himself and he says, give me now. Now, Sia is a Greek word, as I was mentioning last night, means easy. Pyo is an adverb, means more. He's saying, easy. Take it easy. Now, I heard it, I understood the words. I didn't really know what he meant. And Father Marklos, who is very Greek, who's now in the Holy Land, was standing next to me, and I say, what do you mean by that? You mean softer? Slower? I don't know. So for about a week or 10 days, I was trying different things, and what am I going to do? So I looked up the icon of Christ and I realized, okay, you idiot, say it like you're saying it to Christ here. And almost immediately, Aaron just sent Papa Ephraim over to me and said, I'm going it. That's it. Moral of the story is, treat God like he's a real person. He is. He's not a person like us. He is a perfect man and perfect God. So, by the way, forgive me, Kuria, Matushka, Royaltisa. The subject matter is out the window. I'm going to just talk to you about spiritual life. And that's the essence of spiritual life, is connecting yourself to the essence of spiritual life. Okay, brass tacks. As I mentioned yesterday, the groundwork of spiritual life is etymologically also in humility. The humus. The humus of our soul is where we plant the seeds that grow into the virtues. And without the humility, the virtues go awry. St. Paul talks, he says, and at last, faith, hope, and love, these three remain. And the greatest of these is love. Then he goes on to talk about love. Now, why does he talk about those three like a triangle? Because those are the three basic virtues that all the virtues grow out of. But I'm not going to pretend to correct St. Paul. I just look at it in a little different way. I see it as a tetrahedron with humility as the base, and faith, hope, and love grounded on humility. Now, by the way, where's Nick? Is he hiding around here somewhere? Anyway, I was telling him how we got this press that I adapted to make incense. And my thought was, I was tired of the incense rolling off with the charcoal. You start sensing, and if all this incense is off the side of the charcoal, come on. So every big service at St. Anthony's, we would have at the end of trapeza, at the end of the meal, there was a service called the Ipsos Istis Panaias, the lifting up of the Theotokos. Historically, someone just explained it. It was a visiting priest in our monastery mentioned it in his sermon. But what happened was, after Christ's resurrection, the 12 apostles would get together on Sunday, and they'd have an agape meal, and at the end, they would raise up a loaf, they'd leave a chair empty for Christ. They'd raise up a loaf and say, Blessed is the Holy Trinity, now and ever in the ages of ages. Amen. And after the Mother of God reposed and ascended bodily into heaven, when one of the apostles held up the loaf, he said, blessed is the name of, I can't remember. Anyway. And then the other one saw, there was the Mother of God there with him. And automatically he said, most holy Theotokos, save us. So ever since then, we've done it that way. We say, blessed is the most Holy Trinity, most holy Theotokos, save us. We call it lifting up of the Panagia. Anyway, and then everybody takes a pinch from the loaf, and then eat it. Now I saw that when Aaron Frim took his pinch from the loaf, he'd squeeze it between his 2 forefingers and thumbs. When you do that, you get a tetrahedron. So from that, I had the idea if I could make incense into a tetrahedron, then it wouldn't roll off the charcoal. A tetrahedron can't roll. So anyway, I did a little experimenting. I made a little form, and I got some, well, that's another. I don't know how much to bore you people with this, but I went to the abbot about 8 years ago at the end of the liturgy and said, and how long do we have to continue smelling Prel shampoo and Grandma's powder puff in liturgy? But they sent us all this free incense from Mount Athos, and sometimes you really do get what you pay for. Anyway, and his answer was, why don't we just get a tree? Okay, I'll try to act obedient. So I went to Google and I researched frankincense. I found out that frankincense is Boswellia sacra, and the Boswellia genus has 19 species in it. And the only place on the planet Earth that has all 19 species in one place was Tempe, Arizona. Our backyard. So anyway, making a long story short, I got half a dozen or so different incense plants, and we built a greenhouse with bottom heat. We propagated all these trees. We built an incense farm with about 400 or 500 incense trees. And then, as it was just about to produce, I moved to Wisconsin. So, well. Anyway, that's the tetrahedron concept. That's stability. That's if you build your virtues on humility, you're not going to be shaken off, because you can't go any lower. That's why Christ tells you when you go to a group, go to a dinner, you take the lowest place. Then they'll say, come on up higher, friend. If I'm sure we all can think of plenty of examples of the opposite, of someone going to the highest place and saying, you can't sit there, you gotta move down. Okay. Anyway, so people ask me, so last night they asked, how do we attain real humility? And I answered, and I don't have much to expand on that, but I realized, well, look, they walk out at night in a place where you can see the stars and look up at that. And you realize how minuscule you are compared to God's creation. That's part of it. The other part is, then you realize how much God loves you. Every part of you, everything you do, He takes care of you. He loves you. He watches over you. He gives you everything. He does give you everything you need. Sometimes we don't realize it. Sometimes we don't take it and use it or appreciate it. It's there. And that's where you get real humility. Because you realize, in spite of my insignificance, God's given me all this. when at St. Anthony's, we noticed there was a couple of 3 guys walking around with a camera, and we didn't ask, we just stayed away from them as much as possible. Turns out, of course, they had lessons from the habit. They were making a little film for the Greek Reporter. They came to the shop where I was working. I was planing board, and they asked me a few questions. They explained the situation. They had blessings. They asked me a few questions, and I answered them. And then finally, one guy says, "But Father, you seem awfully happy." I said, "Look, Jesus Christ, the second person of the Holy Trinity, came to this world, lived, suffered, and died for me so that I could be free. Explain to me how I can be happy." Of course. That's all there is in the world, is incredible joy for our salvation. We have to take it. Now, okay, the other part of learning to build the virtues based on humility is, okay, everybody reads the books. Okay, you read the books, you know what the people say. I wasn't explaining to you. I have a friend who he said he was in a symphony orchestra, and they were rehearsing, and the conductor at one point put down the baton and said, "Look, what are you people doing? You've got your noses in these papers. I know how it's supposed to go. You should know that music, but I'm the one that's showing you how it goes." And later on, I happened to see a rehearsal of the United States Marine Corps Band. Now, these guys are musicians par excellence, and the director was, or is, I suppose he's still the same person, a colonel in the Army and Marine Corps, sorry. And he was also an excellent, he really knew the music. They were playing Stars and Stripes Forever, which is, frankly, I gotta admit, I got a really indomitable patriotic streak, and that brings it out. But he said, for example, at one point he says, okay, now the tubas, at this point, there's written, boom, 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 boom. But I want a little bit more liveliness, so we're going to go, boom, 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 boom. You got that? Okay. And he changed it. I mean, I'm sure John Philip Sousa would have thought it was great, but it was the minutiae that he was watching, and then when he would direct, stop, bum, 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 and that's why I'm telling you, the books are groundwork. You need a spiritual father to interpret and direct you in using that groundwork. He's the maestro. Pay attention to the maestro. As I said last night, one size doesn't fit all. I mean, I get this all the time, and you probably do too. People come to me and say, I read in so-and-so that you have to do this, and you didn't tell me to do that. Well, one of the reasons I didn't tell you to do that is because if you tried to do that, you would fail, then you'd get depressed. Or if you did that, you would get proud because you did it, and then you wouldn't be able to do what you need to do. So, believe me, find a spiritual father who can guide you in your spiritual life, who can learn to understand you. Now, it really helps if you do what your spiritual father tells you to do, because I'm sure you experience it. I'm talking to the priest here. You say, you need to go and you need to do this, you need to follow this rule. Here's what you do. Okay, and they come back next week. Did you do it? No. Okay, we'll try again. Well, you know, thing is, people, we tend not to take spiritual life real, as a reality. We will, if the doctor tells us, okay, listen, you can't eat tomatoes anymore because it's causing acid reflux, and you stop eating tomatoes, that's it. And we'll do anything for our physical health. For our spiritual health, well, that's fungible. No, it's not. To take another musical analogy, when you learn to play a musical instrument, you first learn how to make a sound. I played cornet. You learn to buzz your lips with a mouthpiece and make a silly squawk. Then you put the horn on and you learn to make a tone, not a good tone. Then you learn how to operate the valves and play scales. And step by step, you learn how to make music. You never stop practicing your scales, your chromatics, your arpeggios. You do all the basics, make sure you've got the basics down, and you keep them. Then you can make music. In spiritual life, people think, I've did that, I've learned to do that, I don't have to do that anymore. No, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to me, actually, because I've been there, done it. And if you want it to work, you follow the rules, you follow the guidelines. You can't make it up as you go along. It doesn't work that way. Now, try to keep it simple and straight with your spiritual father so that he understands what's going on. Because, and make it clear to him also if you have any unusual personality traits, let's say, like eating disorders, or any passions out of the ordinary. Now, most spiritual fathers will know to expect some passions to come up, and some especially in certain age groups, and some not. And they're, if they've got any experience, they'll know how to identify those. And don't be surprised if they really want to help you, they will ask. Your spiritual father will ask, have you got this problem? I have a good friend. He's grown up a lot since he first met during the friend 25 years ago. He said when he first met him, Darren Friend talked to him a little bit. He says, Konstantinos, I see you have a problem with women. Well, when he told me, he said, I don't have a problem with women. I got the names I want. But anyway, he wasn't offended because he knew that it was true. So, and he worked on it, and he did a good job of it too, by the way. So that's one thing: is get a good spiritual father, pay attention to him, and do what he says, and communicate. Almost all, and now your relationship with your spiritual father is a human relationship. You understand, we're people talking to people, with Christ helping the communication. You have, because we're people, you have to communicate on a human level. Now, if you have an exceptional spiritual father, like you're in the friend, sometimes, if God decides to inform him, you will see something that you don't tell him. There's a story of St. Anthony. He was out in the desert, and a couple of monks wanted to come see him. They went out to the desert, and they got lost. St. Anthony had a revelation. He just told his monks, go out this direction. There's a couple of monks out there, they're in trouble. You need to bring them here. So they went out, they found them. One was already dead. They brought both St. Anthony, and when they revived the one, he said, thank you for saving my life. Well, why didn't you save my friend's life too? St. Anthony said, prayed. And he heard a voice say, Anthony, mind your own business. God informs people how he sees fit. He has his reasons. I have some other stories along those lines I can tell you. This is going to get a little long. You communicate. Almost all human interactions can be made very easy if people will communicate honestly, peacefully, and thoroughly. Okay. I wrote this list of topics to hit because I was supposed to talk on a different subject, but it got changed last minute. So, well, okay, I said do what your spiritual life tells you to do. A big part of spiritual life is simple consistency. That's one of the reasons why monks have an easier time, frankly, of spiritual life, is because they live what we call a regular life. You get up at a certain time, you do a certain rule, you go to church, you go to lunch, you go to work, you do it day after day after day. It becomes second nature. It's like, you know, there are very few changes in our schedule. As much as you can make your life regular and consistent, it'll make it much easier for you. Now, and that gets, your spiritual father should help you develop a prayer rule, you know, and it doesn't have to be long, it doesn't have to be elaborate, and it's not necessarily reading a whole bunch of prayers from a book. Mostly it's, you know, saying a few prayers, getting your mind calmed down and focused, and saying a little, I would say, saying a little bit of Jesus prayer. And by the way, a lot of people try to, you know, say Jesus prayer for 2 hours straight or something. Well, I'm sure there are people that can do it that way when you start out. I sure couldn't. I can't now, really. Most everybody has some type of timer on their phone or whatever. Time yourself for 15 minutes. Maybe less, maybe 10 minutes. And concentrate on the words of the Jesus prayer. Focus. There's a story about St. Basil, a Fool for Christ in Moscow. And he was in a big service in the cathedral. And of course the emperor was there with his family in the special imperial box. After the service, the emperor walks out and he sees Basil. Now, Basil, a Fool for Christ, was he as the Pharisees accused Christ, he's not a respecter of persons. In other words, the emperor was a person to him. So the emperor says, "Oh, Vasily, were you at the service?" "Yeah. Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, Vanushka." He called him, you know, Johnny. Very disrespectful. But yeah, Vanushka, I was there. Were you there? "Oh, yes, I was there." "Oh, no, you weren't, Vanushka. You were out on Sparrow Hill building your new house." And of course, the emperor couldn't say anything because throughout the entire service, he was saying, "Can you put 4 windows over here, and I can make this high?" He wasn't paying any attention to the service whatsoever. His body was there, his mind wasn't. So the point is, don't try to reach for the stars, reach for the lamp, you know, that'll illuminate the room. And say, then it'll grow. If you start out trying, well, the same way when Papa Friend was coaching me on speaking Greek, he said, say it slowly and correctly. You know, pater imon o antis renis aiasito dolama. If you try to say it as fast as everybody else that's been saying it all their life, you're going to make a mush of it. So, the same with your prayer. Make your prayer simple, concise, focused, and brief. 5-10 minutes of focused prayer is better than 30 minutes of, fixing your car, plowing your field, tending your tomato plants in your mind. And I've had that happen plenty of times too, and sometimes you see things that actually happen, that are actually, now who shows you? I don't know. Sometimes God shows us things, sometimes the demons show us things just to distract us. Don't pay attention to any of it. You're supposed to be paying attention to the prayer. And pay attention to the words. The meaning, the reality of the person behind the words will come if you pay attention to the words. The other thing about spiritual life is, okay, look, young men come to me, I want to be a monk. Are you Orthodox? Well, I'm thinking about becoming a catechist. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. In order to be an Orthodox monk, you have to be Orthodox. In order to be Orthodox, you have to be a Christian. In order to be a Christian, you have to be a human. Now that sounds a little bit facile, but look at the world today. I mean, people are deciding whether they're human or not. People are deciding what gender they are. And that destroys their relationship with their humanity. God, I'm telling you, this world is in a pickle. This world is on a cusp of a big problem because there's a whole lot of people that want to make humans better. Well, I mean, of course, that's what the church is for. No. They're going to do it technologically. They're going to make humans better by either implanting chips into them so that they can be hooked up to a huge computer, or just making them totally dependent on computers to make them better. Now, I'm not saying computers are the devil, but you think the devil can't use a computer? I think he does a pretty good job of it on a lot of occasions. So the point I'm trying to make is Christ was perfect man and perfect God. He was the God-man. He came that way so that he could save us by joining our humanity to his humanity. If we destroy our humanity, where's the God-man to us? He can't save machines. He saves man. I started out saying that I stumbled on the word philanthropy. The reason I stumbled is, if you say, like they used to say in some of the texts, O lover of man, glory to thee. Nowadays, what does that mean? Man-loving man? Oh, yeah. So, we should be circumspect. Like we talk about the cherubim, who are all eyes within and without. That's the image that's evoked, by the way, in the prayer of St. Ephraim. But give me a spirit of, the word is sophrosini. Now, they translate it usually chastity. It does mean chastity, okay, right. But in a broader sense, it means circumspection is a good word. People don't use the word circumspection, so it doesn't become a good word. Prudence is a pretty good word. It means It means, soulful seating means having a healthy mind. You know, I'm not, and you know, some people can make anything obscene, can make anything filthy, any thought. And you see it on the internet, you see it in advertising all the time. That's the opposite of what we're talking about, a healthy mind. What I'm talking about, a healthy mind is a person that sees everything as God's creation, and if something doesn't fit into that, it just isn't seen. You know, that's the way to get to a good relationship, a solid relationship with the God-man, by having a healthy mind. So it'll be interesting to see what this world becomes in the next 20 years. Looking around, I think there's probably a pretty good chance everybody in this room will be around to see it. The good news is, just like Father was saying, how Massachusetts is the lowest religious affiliation in the country. Well, that's a great opportunity for us here now. Fathers would say, I'm talking when I say the fathers, like in the 4th century. And the time will come when man will become so bestial that if anybody is a true human, a true man, and stands up at all for Christian faith and ideals, they will shine like a star. So you guys are the stars of Massachusetts right here. So as Christ said, let your light so shine before men that they will see your fathers in heaven. What does he now say?
Seeing your deeds.
They see your
They will
deeds.
venerate the Father and the Son.
Yeah, right. So, that's our job. That's the good news. Is we don't have to be superhuman in order to make a big difference in this world now today. We just need to be normal. Now, I'm talking about the old definition of normal, not the present definition of normal, okay? I think I've exhausted the issue.
Okay, yes, thank you very much, Father.
Okay.
I think there's a break now, 15-minute break.
And you write your question.
Right, so I have some questions for Father, and we'll take a short intermission, and we'll come back to ask a question, have question and answer. Here.